v.h.s.x? What do you mean?
Today I wanted to have a reaction and discussion about a video from Why Fight titled DBD is leaving killers in the dust and it's Swift's fault. So I'm really interested to kind of dive into this topic. I've actually covered this type of sort of subject in the past, and I'm interested in really hearing if there's any other points that maybe we can hear, or maybe if I agree or disagree with the points being made. So let's get into it.
But man, I gotta say, Survive with Friends genuinely ruin this game and everything about it. For context, I've been trying to make a jump scare compilation using the semi-new buffed Insidious, right, along with Dragon's Grip, and I've only managed to get maybe 2 or 3 jump scares because the moment one of these survivors, just one, the moment just one figures out your 2 perks, that's it. They just instantly pre-run everything, and you can tell when a Survive with Friends is, you know, just that, just based entirely on how they play. I mean,
I have to say that I do agree with this idea. This is this is a concept that I actually discussed a lot in my previous videos, where you're basically making it impossible for people to want to use unique and different builds because of the fact that when they do, you immediately are countered, you're immediately unable to get value, you're unable to actually complete the goal. And as what we're hearing from Why Fight is they're trying to use a jump scare build, right? So that means that they're using Doctor. They're probably going to try to use the hallucinations and try to maybe pretend they are one so that they can get a hit with Dragon's Grip or something like that. And comms, you know, if they're in a Discord call, VC, whatever have you, that completely eliminates even the possibility for a jump scare to even occur, right? Because it happens once and it's already called out. They will not fall for it again at that point. Swifts are very, I would say, unbalanced for this game's scope, I would say. Because the game is just simply not designed to have comms in mind, right? Like, it's just really not. Even from when the game was first created, I don't even think that comms was even considered, right? Because a lot of the game's focus was specifically on stealth and trying to recreate that sort of horror movie sort of feel. The game has now shifted toward a more chase focused looping kind of thing, which is like, this is not really what they sort of anticipated the game to do. And this is what I've been talking about. And this goes across the board with different people, right? You can be a casual player or a new player or even an average player, or even if you're at like a super dedicated player where you have like thousands of hours, maybe you're like going for wins and stuff like that, going against very tough teams. All across the board, you can see this is a common issue. Like, people playing killer do not feel like they can run unique builds or something different, or run unique killers, because they're just going to end up getting steamrolled, or they're just unable to use their stuff because of the game's balancing, gen speed, and obviously don't forget Surviving with Friends.
I'm playing Doctor in these clips, and these survivors are getting 4 gens done within 3 minutes of the game starting, right? And yeah, that's a good thing for them.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about myself. This is a point that I was making as well. I said this many times, actually, that across the board, players, like killer players, are experiencing incredible gen speeds that I've only seen like at least months ago in my matches specifically. I can look at other people's games, whether they stream videos. Gens were never this quick. it almost seemed like for some reason recently it just kind of got this resurgence of just gen rushing. I don't know where it came from, honestly. Now I'm a player that would go for a lot of wins, so that was probably why my MMR was like I was mainly going against people that also were going to win, that were playing to win their games with Swifts and stuff like that. So fast gens to me was the norm, but like for everybody else, when I would watch or they would watch my streams, it would usually be pretty confusing. They'd be like, "Wow, like the gens are pretty quick," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's just how it happens when I play." But as we're even hearing from, which I'm assuming it might be like maybe a new player or like because I am seeing like level 2 perks and stuff like that. So assuming that it is like a normal like either an average player or a sort of new player and stuff like that, this person saying that like the gens are this crazy where you're getting 4 done in under 3 minutes is like what I'm saying is the problem with the game right now. There's gotta be like it can't be just a coincidence, you know what I mean? It can't. It's just not possible.
But for me, you know, I'm trying to run like a fun build, right? But it's just not possible. You can't have fun when, you know, 4 sweaty nerds are in a Discord call making fun of you the whole time and calling out everything and your current position. It doesn't matter, you know. And I genuinely believe that is what's destroying this game. It's the fact that there's no risk when you play as a SWF. There's none. The whole communication factor completely destroys many killers, including jump scare killers like Myers, Ghostface, hell, even Doctor with Insidious, like what I was trying to do, you know.
I completely agree with this. I made this point many times, and it's probably been said by other creators as well that surviving with friends completely just destroys the balancing that the game already has, which is already a pretty bad set of balancing. So we do hear it a lot. Like people, there's the players that are very inexperienced that will say that it's killer sided. Then there may be players that say it's survivor sided. But the truth is, ultimately it's Swift sided. You know, that's the common sentiment that we all can kind of agree with, because at the lower levels, like, you know, the killers are just able to do more because there's less people on gens. They're just more unaware. And then as you go across the board with more experience, then obviously it gets easier and easier for matches to be 5 minutes, because gen speed is really not that hard to replicate. I mean, you know, all you have to do is it's 1 second for 1% of the gen. So if you're taking a 10-second chase, it's still 10% of the gen. If you take any longer than that, that's 20% or whatever have you. Mind you have to down to even get half of the slowdown to activate. So if you're using a low tier, they might struggle a lot more to get downs than the higher tiers like Blight or Nurse, Kaneki. So that is already a big problem, right? Because there's such a giant gap between the low tiers and the high tiers. Then on top of that, you also have Swifts. So then it just makes it even harder for the lower tiers to even be able to compete even more so. Because stealth works great for Survivor, but doesn't really work that well on killers. Ghostface is still one of the bottom 3 killers in the game. Myers, I think, is like a step above him, but still pretty bad. I mean, if it's barely a difference. I mean, we're talking a D tier and a C tier right now. It's basically like it's pretty much non-existent. I would consider Myers maybe a low C tier. Like, I wouldn't completely put them in D tier because that's where Trapper and Skull Merchant are, but Myers at least is a very low C in my opinion. So with that being said, like it's really just a big issue that I've spoken about many times, and it's interesting to me that we're finally getting more perspectives on the subject, and we're hearing like from people across the board. We're hearing the same exact perspective where they're just unable to use what they want to use, which I've said already. You can't try unique things. You can't put on meme builds and stuff like that unless you want to sweat. I've said before, it's the inverse when you pick builds. If you want to sweat, you're gonna put on your meme builds. If you want to chill, have your chill games, you put on your slowdown, because that's the only way you're gonna make the game last longer than 5 minutes. It's the inverse, which is crazy. But they still call it sweaty, right? But it's like, how else are you gonna play the match out? You can get maybe 2 chases and then you hear the gen's done. You're like, okay, well, what the heck just happened? It's terrible.
And I haven't played the game for a couple of days because the exploits with Streetwise and Vigil and all those other stupid perks, it's getting ridiculous. I mean, I've had survivors literally run up to me injured, stand in my face, I swing, and then they sprint burst away. I mean, they have literally a 30-second cooldown on sprint burst, and then you have people complaining about Clown. And
so notice, once again, which, just judging by the game, like, obviously, you know, just going off of the gameplay, the level of the perks and stuff like that, I can assume that this may be a newer player who, or maybe more average player, maybe doesn't play a lot. And notice what they're talking about. They said Vigils is crazy at where they're at, right? The gens are crazy, right? They can't use any meme builds. The gens are flying. Vigil is still crazy. The Streetwise bug was going crazy. Before, obviously, this might have been like maybe recorded before that, before it was patched, but still, Vigil is still going. It's still active. It still reduces all status effects, including exhaustion, meaning you're just buffing the meta, as already we spoke about. So it just goes to show you across the board, it, like, no matter what player, it's like you're going to hear the similar things, which means that it must be a problem.
as a solo queue survivor going against the Clown, yeah, that sucks, but if you're in a survive with friends and you're going against the Clown, you have no room to complain, not even a little bit. So it's just ridiculous.
Now, in my opinion, as a killer, player, as a killer enjoyer, I would say that I think they overdid it with Clown just a smidge, only because of my perspective on how Clown was and how he was played. But that's in a different video. I already covered it. I can put that at the end. But I will say that he still is like a pub stomper for the very extremely casual players. I would say a lot of the like lower to average level players probably are going to struggle a bit, because Clown with mainly just yellow bottle only is able to completely counteract a lot of the whole W, the pre-dropping and stuff like that. And I think that's because it goes against that constant rinse repeat gameplay that they like to partake in. I think that's why they probably hate Clown a lot more. Now, on the other hand, I do think that Clown should definitely require a little bit more input, just because I think Clown had depth, and by just kind of not using the full kit kind of takes away from what makes Clown so interesting, in my opinion. But I digress.
I mean, then you have survivors complaining about, this killers, they don't want to have fun. It's like, we try to have fun. You actively ruin it. You are the problem for this game.
Yeah, I'm glad that that White Fight just mentioned that. That's the point I was making. You have survivors that will claim the killers are sweaty and all this type of stuff, but when you see a literal example right in front of you with this clip here, he's trying to use like a hallucination kind of build with Insidious, jump scare people, try to have fun, and he can't, right? Because as he's mentioned, he goes throughout the games. Games are done in 5 minutes. Like, you literally barely could get maybe one clip in or something like that just to jump scare people. And you just can't, because the games are ending in 5 minutes. So what does that mean? He doesn't play the game anymore, right? It pushes people out. It makes less people want to play. Doesn't even seem like a super dedicated player. This is like a more average player. So think about how many people that are average players that take up the vast majority of the player base that want to hop on killer and then can't even have fun. That's not good. Now, some of us are dedicated, right? Like some of us are dedicated or we're content creators or whatever have you. So that's a whole different thing. But we're talking about people that are trying to do it for fun in their free time between, you know, life. You know what I mean? They're just trying to just hop on the game and have a bit of fun, and they can't. It's impossible.
Game. And, you know, like, unless you're running like Grim Embrace, Pain Res, Dead Man Switch, in Lethal Pursuer, you're pretty much screwed. Like 99% of the time. It's genuinely retarded. It makes no sense. It feels like from a survivor perspective, you can have all these different perk synergies and actually have a lot of fun, even if you're going against a killer you don't like. But for killer, it's like, unless you're always playing the 3 meta perks, 3 or 4, you're screwed. And
honestly, I agree with that idea as well. If you're playing a low tier, you're probably not going to win your games. I mean, Doctor's up there too. He's just, unfortunately, he's not very strong. You know? Ghostface, Myers. I mean, most of my mains, besides Pyramid Head, I would say are C tiers, D tiers. Like, they're terrible. They're absolutely garbage. So from my perspective, my fun is pretty much non-existent. I don't get to enjoy the game. I don't actually get to experience the fun aspects of the game. Because my characters that I want to play, that I like, because I like the movies, right? I like the horror movies. I like the slashers. I like Chucky and Ghostface, Myers and Freddy and all this type of fun. Ooh, and then I can't even enjoy the game because they're so terrible. Like, the gap between an S tier and an A tier and a B tier is so drastic compared to a C and a D tier is insane. If they were able to just start shifting them up so that they're a little bit better than where they're at, there would probably be more variety with killer choice. But obviously, people have different ways that they decide to deal with the situation. They either don't play the game, or if they decide to play the game, they only will play the S tiers. And then it leads into this sort of Ouroboros sort of situation where the killer players are having a tough time, so they either don't play or they play the S tiers, which then leads to survivor complaints. Survivor complaints lead to more nerfs, which means it leads to more people leaving the game who enjoyed killer, which then leads to less people playing, which means the people that are dedicated are just going to continue with the S tiers, which then leads to more complaining, which leads to more nerfing of the killers again, and then it just keeps going. And yet, like, as I've said many times, like, survivors do have a lot of options. Like, their perks are very good in terms of design, in terms of strength and stuff like that. They have a lot of synergies. They have a lot of perks that are getting buffed every other patch that were pretty good perks. I mean, Resurgence was perfectly fine where it was. It immediately got buffed for no reason. Vigil was fine where it was. Boom, got buffed for no reason. Like, we had Empathic Connection, fine perk, got buffed for no reason. Like, there's just perks that were fine where they were, got buffed for no reason. I don't understand that. Now, if they went after perks that nobody used on Survivor, like if there was any random perk that nobody really utilized, or was just a completely terrible perk, I would understand. I would go, hey, that makes complete sense. You want to fix those perks that actually are worth putting on now because no one was using them. Let's try to raise up their pick rates. But they never do that. The philosophy of the balancing has been, for whatever reason, if the killers are using a bunch of perks that are almost necessary, because they never actually figure out why they're using the perks, they just think, oh, they're just using these things, so we have to make sure we get rid of them. It's like, maybe let's try to figure out why everybody's using slowdown. And then what I find really interesting is on Survivor, they don't actually nerf the things that people are using like crazy. Like, the pick rates are insane for Sprint, Burst, Live, Balance Landing, Vigil, Dead Hard, Decisive, Off the Record, stuff like that. And there's never a change coming for that, even though the pick rates are really high, which doesn't really make any sense. So I don't really understand like that weird design philosophy. It's like, don't like if you like, why is it on one end you can go, oh well, these perks are used too much, let's just nerf them. But then on the other end, it's like, oh, but they're used a lot, but we're not gonna nerf them, and yet we're gonna buff perks people already use or already find, but not buff the person nobody uses. Like, it doesn't make any sense. If you want to create a new meta or a new variety of perks, why not buff the other perks nobody uses? Like, there's a lot of perks, like I think Hoarder, for example, that was pretty terrible back in the day. I don't even think people used a good majority of the killer perks. I'm pretty sure a good example is like Shattered Hope, like one of the most useless perks in the game. Because there's no indicator to know if there's going to be a boon in play, so you can easily just slap it on and never be able to step on a totem to break it. A perk that really, either, in my opinion, should be base kit, but that's a whole nother topic. And that perk just never gets buffed or changed, you know? A completely just low pick rate, no one puts it on. And we don't ever see anything for that, which is crazy.
99% of your matches, it's not fun. And a lot of people say that this game is killer sided. I know a lot of you, those Reddit nerds, would probably say the exact same thing, but from my experience as a killer main, it's the exact opposite. I mean,
I really have to ask, when people say it's killer sided, I really want to ask how, because for the like majority of the players, I would say, I would have to say that's just untrue. The only way you could, like, I think when people say that it is killer sided, it only exposes that they're very either very casual or very new, or within that bracket with other players that are also very inexperienced. Because like I've said, I've even seen this myself, the killers are just objectively going to do better when the survivors are unaware, because they're not doing gens and they're really unable to loop, right? So that means that chases are quick, and then gens aren't getting done because no one's touching the gens. Nobody is lasting long in chase. So when those two things are happening, then obviously, of course, it's going to seem like the killers are so crazy. But it's like, what about people that are in the average or the more experienced brackets, right? Well, how do you explain like gens just flying under 5 minutes then? Like, how do you explain that? How do you explain just constantly getting 5-minute games? Because if it was so killer sided, wouldn't they be able to just make a comeback instantly? Wouldn't it not be reliant on a survivor making a mistake? Because if you are going against a team like that where they are gen rushing, there's maybe one way you can make a comeback, and is if somebody slips up. But say they don't, right? Say they're in comms and they're willing to take the 3 out if you even get the down or even get somebody close to a death hook. How do you explain that to, how is that becoming killer sided though? Because if it was killer sided, wouldn't it just be easy to just make the comeback? Right? Like, wouldn't it just be easy to immediately just win the game anyway? Even though the gens are already flying, even though that the chases are as short as they can be, but the gens are so quick, you don't even have to really be good at the game.
I mean, I literally have people who are, they literally just are so incredibly confident. It's insane. When you have communication like that, it breaks the entire game fundamentally. Behaviors should balance the game around the killers, not the survivors. That's kind of the whole point.
That's what I was saying in my other video, when I was saying that the game should be killer sided. Now I know that survivor, the very delusional will say, oh, that's just bias, you just want free wins, and it's like that you're just not listening to the point. I've made this point before as well. It's like, we're playing as monsters and horror villains and stuff like that who literally have powers, like literal superpowers, right? Like, people can like launch like waves of tomato juice on the ground to slow you down. They have infinite supplies of bottles to throw at you, or they have infinite supply of hatches well, mostly infinite, but you get the idea. Like, they have hatches they can just magically spawn in, right? Like, they have teleportation abilities, dashes, like, you know what I mean? They have a killer that can phase through the walls. Like, you would think, that seems pretty powerful. Like, they have a literal superpower to go through walls, or to teleport, or to do whatever have you, like to speed up, or to be able to one-shot you or something. Like, you would think, that sounds like it's a power. That sounds pretty powerful. And yet the 4 team with like of just regular people are able to bully the guy with superpowers is the most like backwards thing I've ever heard. It's like you're watching. I don't even know how to compare that. It doesn't make any sense. I've said this point before. It doesn't make any sense. If you're literally playing the powers, like the power role, right? You literally have powers. You could literally shoot, like with Doctor, you're shooting lightning out of your hands. Like, why wouldn't you feel powerful? Like, that's the thing that I don't understand. It's like you literally can shoot lightning out of your hands, or you're able to launch a fire axe into the air and go through a magical door that leads you somewhere across the map, or you can like dash at people, or you can do all these things. And it's like, why is it that you're not powerful as a killer? Like, that just doesn't make sense. Now, obviously, I'm not saying free wins, but I'm saying, like, why is it that the game is so focused on the survivor end when the killers are pretty much the core of the match? They're literally like, escaping should be a team working thing. Like, we're at a point now where it's like a Swiss Army knife with every single survivor. It's like 4 Swiss Army knives that can all do multiple different things. And there's no roles in there. Like, there's no one that can fit a role because they all can do the same things equally as good, if not more so.
And I don't know if the visual bug still exists, but basically there was or is, I don't know, a bug with visual where it stacks. So if you're standing next to someone who has visual, it stacks. Visual already cuts like most of your negative effects in half, or like by a third. So a third. It basically takes a 60-second exhaustion timer and brings it down to 15 seconds. I mean, it's ridiculous. And you know, I don't like being that guy who likes to play the clown, because I know it's annoying to go against, right? It's very annoying. But it honestly, in my opinion, just doesn't make sense for the survivors to be labeled as survivors when they're not even surviving anymore. They're thriving. They can literally make a match last only 5 minutes if they have Discord open and they're all communicating with each other. It's ridiculous. It's insane.
This has been my point for quite a while now. Quite literally, this has been my point for quite a while now. It has been that idea that it's pretty much, instead of Dead by Daylight, now it's surviving by the sunrise, because you're just unable to die at this point. You know what I mean? And usually you're gonna hear the same stuff. You're gonna probably hear, oh, but the S tiers, and it's like, and the S tiers and everybody else in the cast are just completely different experiences. And when I even have these conversations, or I even talk about this sort of idea, I don't even consider the S tiers in the conversation, because the focus should be, can we move up the killers that need the help to move up towards that direction, toward the direction of S tier? Not saying that they should be all S tiers, but at least move them up, make them a little bit stronger so that they can actually have a fighting chance, and there's actual variety of killers, because people enjoy going against the weaker killers, right? But why would people continue to do that if they're just going to get steamrolled all day long? People don't like to just sit there and lose all day long. Like, they want to at least win once. At least makes them feel like they can do something, right? And in my perspective, like if you're choosing to survive, meaning that you're going to be one of the victims in a horror movie, right? Shouldn't it be more of a struggle, at least in my perspective? Because I think that's like sort of the point, right? Like if we're trying to make it a horror game, it should be scary to go against a literal monster. Like what? I don't understand.
And
I covered a good majority of the video. If you want to watch the rest of the video, it'll be linked in the description. But my final thoughts ultimately are really the fact that this game just it's not looking too good for us killer players, man. And it's interesting to kind of hear other perspectives on the topic that I've kind of discussed before, because it's not just me, you know what I mean? It's not just me coming up with this type of stuff. Like there's other people that are also saying the same stuff I'm saying, that are experiencing the same things I'm experiencing, across the board. I mean, I would consider myself a more dedicated player. Like I've been going for wins on my mains for a while, so I would imagine I'm going against like very tough opponents, and I do unfortunately go against very gen rushy, just absolute super meta, like just disgusting builds and stuff like that. And to say that like even more casual people, just people that are like not even even close to that level of in terms of like those types of teams and those kinds of experience levels and stuff like that, which is obviously the majority, which is perfectly fine. But the fact, like, it's crazy that it's kind of spread to now the rest of the player base, which is insane, right? But let me know what you guys think in the comments section. And yeah, while you're down there, check out the links to support the channel. Consider following on Twitch and TikTok for more content. And you can watch me play Killer live on Twitch. But with that being said, I'm gonna see you guys in the next video.